All right, hello everyone. Thank you for coming. My name's Tracy Osborne. I work for Academic Resources at the College of Online and Continuing Education. And we're really excited today to talk about Learn Trials. And we have a visitor to give us a demo of Learn Trials. So part of what my team does is we work with educational technology, and we work very closely with publishers in adopting their educational technology and their platforms into our courses and programs. And one of the issues we've been struggling with is how do we compare the various educational technology products that we're looking at, and how do we have a more streamlined process to first find out what's out there and help us vet and source in a less time-consuming way, and also to really track how people are, when we implement these different platforms like a Pearson MyLab or a McGraw-Hill Connect, how are people evaluating and reviewing this? We want to really keep track and measure this. So we were looking around for tools, and we found Learn Trials. And so today we'd like to give you a demo of this, and we have Wes Spurt, who's the VP of Products, to help give us an introduction of that. And then Lindsay Knoll, who is our Director of Learning Resources, will walk us through the SNHU part of Learn Trials. So you'll see the larger part and the SNHU part. And what we're really excited about is the potential for this to be a larger vetting tool that we can get other people in the university interested in as well. So Wes, if you want to come on by.
Thank you. I'm going to turn this around real quick. So I'm not huge on microphones, but I feel like it's required for the live stream, so I'm like feel a little awkward. But anyway, my name's Wes. I lead the product team at Learn. Our platform, which looks like this, we characterize it as an education technology management system, which you may ask yourself, like, well, what does that mean? And so essentially what it's designed to do is organize an organization's education technology in sort of a central, real-time location. So all of those different resources and information and details about all these different tools that are being used across y'all's different courses and things like that are sort of able to be organized efficiently. It's designed to streamline processes. So like Tracy mentioned, like processes for discovery, for procurement, for evaluation. Like how do we do that in a more efficient and streamlined way? And then at the end of that, analyze. So ultimately, if Southern New Hampshire University is investing in all of these digital teaching and learning resources, like how are those things actually driving the outcomes that you guys want to drive as far as student outcomes or course retention or whatever that looks like. So the platform is designed to do all of those things and provide a tool that can be used centrally or across campuses to do those things. And so today what I'll do is walk you through a few pieces of what that looks like and give you a sense for what the platform can do, how you guys can take advantage of it, and then Tracy and Lindsay will obviously come up and talk more about how they specifically envision taking advantage of it here at Southern New Hampshire. I'm a pretty informal dude, so if you guys have questions, feel free to shout them out as I go through this. It won't bother me in any way. So so the system is sort of foundationally built on a product database, right? So that we refer to as our product library. And it contains 5,000 plus digital teaching and learning resources, right? So this is everything from courseware products, operational products like SISs and LMSs and all that kind of stuff, apps and games that you might see in a K-12 environment, curricular tools, all kinds of stuff, right? So the database is large and in charge, and it grows every day, which is kind of bonkers in and of itself. That there's just this vast number of things that are out there that are available for faculty and students to leverage in a class, right? So what we've tried to do is curate that a little bit and say, like, okay, how can we pull that information together in a more organized fashion, and what information do folks like yourselves want to know, like up front, to be able to streamline things like discovering what might be out there that meets our particular needs, and how do we compare those things and vet those things and stuff like that. So this is how you guys can engage with that product library, right? So, and this is for what it's worth, this is a demo account. Like, this isn't real data. This is actually how it looks in real life, but the data's not real. So, like, Acme Economics is not actually a thing. This is actually specifically the product library for fictional state university, right? So Southern New Hampshire has its own version of this. And what this shows is the tools that are actually being used or supported or purchased or provided by state university, so that folks like yourself can come in and see, of all those 5,000 different things, like, what is the subset of those products that are actively being used or supported or purchased or provided by my organization, right? And the little B pluses and stuff you see along the top is based on actual feedback from other faculty members, folks like yourself within that organization, who have used that tool and said, this is what I think of this particular product, based on a research-backed rubric that we've created. And I'll show you what that looks like in just one second. But you kind of get a sense for, like, what do other people in my organization think about the value of these particular resources. It's totally searchable. So by subject, by grade level. Grade level might not be completely relevant. That's more for, like, the K-12 folks. But there is, like, a higher ed filter in there. Software type, so, like, what's the purpose of this thing? Search by platform. So if you're using iOS devices or Chromebooks or none of the above, like, what is compliant or compatible with those things? There's also this this piece we've built into the library called the Quick Framework. Has everybody heard of that? Nobody? A couple people? Okay, cool beans. So the Quick Framework is a framework that was developed by a committee of folks in the higher ed space who were trying to figure out, like, what are the, like, mix of questions of things that we want to know about any particular courseware product that's going to give us a sense for what that thing actually does. Like, is it actually adaptive? Like, does it actually have collaboration tools? Does it actually address accessibility? It's actually a 40 question or so thing that a provider can come in and answer to give folks like yourselves more visibility to, like, well, if that product says it's adaptive, what does that mean? Like, what does it actually do? So you can actually search in our product database by product providers who have already answered those questions for you. So you can kind of, like, filter that down to go look at that, and I'll show you what that looks like here in just a sec. So if you click on one of those product tiles, this is what you're going to get. And this is where you get into the details of each product that's in this library, right? So you've got, let me start over here. You've got a basic overview, product description, things like that. You will see the detailed report card based on faculty feedback in each of the criteria in our rubric, right? So it covers everything from ease of use to quality of content to technical merit, like, is it buggy and glitchy, to does it actually align with learning objectives, does it engage students, does it help me teach my class, et cetera, et cetera. Sorry, I use a Mac and I'm like all confused. No, I got it. So here's the quick framework, like in reality, right? So there's 9 areas that it covers primarily, right? And within each of those areas, there's a series of questions. So this will give you a sense for how that works, right? So this is all about adaptivity. This provider has come in and said, yep, our courseware product does all of these things, but not that one. So if you're looking for a product to do something specific, like this should give you a sense for what that looks like. In this space, the vendor, the product provider, they're answering on their own. They're saying, my product does this for you. Now, I'm going to show you, actually, Tracy and Lindsay are going to show you in a second how you guys can actually kind of call BS on that if you want to, and answer those questions for yourselves and compare what you guys think that product actually does to what the vendor is saying it actually does. So there is this level of like sort of level setting on that you can do as an organization. All right, real quick. In terms of providing feedback, you guys can do this on products that you use. It's kind of something we encourage. In fact, because you have to gamify everything in today's world, you earn points for doing this that you can redeem for things that I'll show you in just a sec. But the idea is that there's 4 contextual questions that we want to know that basically sort of provide some context on how you actually use that tool, like with which types of students, for what purposes, how long you've actually used it, things like that. And then basically grading A through F in each of those criteria. And this is pretty straightforward, but the cool thing about it is there's actually a 50-point numeric scale behind those grades. So there's actually a numeric difference between an A and an A-, and that allows us to do some pretty cool stuff on the back end in terms of percentiles and things like that. So when you're actually looking to compare one product against another, like you can actually differentiate, and it's not just like, well, everything's 4 stars, so yay. So here's just to show you, here's my points. I have a lot. And I can get stuff. So feel free, take advantage. So one last thing on this front is you'll notice up at the top there's this little go-to thing. So when I originally showed this to you, I was in my state university product library, but you can actually exit out to what we call the Learn Community product library. And basically what that does is say, okay, well, I'm going to take you out of all the stuff that's specifically used at Southern New Hampshire, and I'm going to show you all 5,000 plus of the things in our database, right? So basically it just shifts the context a little bit. So if you want to search through that bad boy, feel free. There's a ton of stuff in there. The same search filters apply. You can do all that same stuff. One of the cool things you can actually do is, I'm going to do this in real life, actually. Yeah, so there is, the way that the platform is built is anyone can sign up for free. Like any individual educator can come in, access the Learn Community side of the library, provide feedback tools that they use, like anybody can do that. So sort of the breadth of feedback that we have in this library is more than just like the organizations that we directly work with, although certainly those folks provide a lot of the feedback that we have in here. But the idea is that we are crowdsourcing this information from a bunch of different educators across the country in both the K-12 and higher ed spaces. What you can do is, take all of that information, so faculty feedback from either within your own organization or across the entire Learn community, and the quick framework information, so the information about what that product actually does and does not do, and say, okay, well, we're trying to figure out which of these tools is going to be best for our particular needs, and compare those against each other across each of those things, right? So there's a little button there that said open filtering options, and there's a number of different filters that you can use. So you can search by like higher ed versus K-12. You can search by a couple of different criteria. You can also search by focus area, and this is part of the quick framework stuff. So the quick framework has these like instructional objectives, which are basically like, I'm trying to do X, Y, or Z in my course, which is like strengthen learner that thing. And so maybe you want to look at products that specifically are aligned to that type of activity. And so you can filter this by a number of different things. But the idea is that you're able to sort of differentiate products and focus in on the ones that make sense. Right? So if we're trying to accomplish like these three things, like what's going to actually work for us? So last thing I'm going to show you guys, but I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I'm going to let Tracy and Lindsay actually show this part specific to Southern New Hampshire. But all the stuff that I showed you is stuff that is accessible to anyone in Southern New Hampshire that, you know, we open it up to basically, right? Like you can search that library, provide your feedback, compare those products, do all that different stuff. As a function of sort of administrative rights within an organization, right? So this is me as an administrator at State University. There's a number of like admin functions that I can do. And essentially it all, you know, the good part that I'll focus on boils down to a couple of key areas within a particular product, right? And so one of those things is courses. So like which courses are these products actually being used in? And then you've got some sort of self-assessments that go along with that in terms of the implementation of those products in those courses to see like how is that going, right? And that's related to the quick framework as well. You've got the feature analysis piece as well, and Lindsay's going to talk more about this particular part in a second. But like, this is part of that. Like, is what the vendor says really what our experience is? You have a more like detailed and nuanced feedback component coming from people only within my organization, saying, okay, what's the faculty experience for this product within Southern New Hampshire University? And then ultimately, what we call impact is an analysis of multiple types of data that can be integrated into the platform to start to look at the relationship between student use of a particular product and an intended outcome. So when students use Acme Economics more, does that actually help us drive whatever we're trying to drive? Right? And so that's built into that platform. So theoretically, for any product that Southern New Hampshire University is supporting or purchasing or whatever, you could go across those tabs and have a pretty solid understanding of what that implementation looks like, where there might be any gaps, where there might be any successes that we want to double down on, compare how one product's doing versus another, et cetera, et cetera. But I'll let y'all get into all that. Oh yeah, sure.
So I have two questions. First one is there any way to show who the owner of the relationship is with the EdTech vendor? I think that's one of the things that we struggle with a lot is like we know that a bunch of people are using this product, but we have no idea who owns the contract or the relationship to go to if we need to change the relationship or that kind of thing. And my second question is, in terms of business model, are the platform or the EdTech products that are on this platform, do they buy into the service with you? And so we would only see the ones that have that kind of relationship with you, or do you kind of just take in as many as you possibly can?
So to the first question, yeah, there is a way to do that. So, and I think we started to do that a little bit in the beginning here because that information was provided to me. But basically, there's within the management function of any product, there's this resources section where I can upload any resources related to that product, which could be like how to use it, tutorials, like whatever. But one of the things we did early on was put information about the product owner in that resources tab. Anything that I put in here is visible to the state university community at large via the product library, right? So I could go through those tabs, look at resources, and understand like all the information that you guys want to share like out, which could be that. To the second question, we work directly with education organizations. So our contract is with Southern New Hampshire University or so-and-so school district or what have you. And that was intentional early on. It allows us to be like product agnostic. Like we have zero opinions on like which product is better than another or what have you. Like we are designed to give education organizations information that they need to make decisions about all of this education technology that exists in the world, and so that's why we did that.
Ready? Hi. First of all, I want to apologize because my voice is wrecked right now. The cold that's been chasing me all winter finally caught up with me. So I apologize that you have to listen to me talk for 20 minutes. But so we wanted to really walk you through kind of what we've done with the Learn platform since we've started our trial with it. We started using it around summer of last year, and we've spent the last couple of months basically populating our library of resources. So when Wes was talking about how this is really a database of resources and a repository of all of this information, and then you can also do those impact analyses. So we're looking to populate all of this information at the outset in hopes of eventually starting to do some of that analysis of our use of these products. So what you're looking at right now is actually our vendor library, our product library for all of the products. Well, I don't want to say all. For the products that we have added to our library thus far. As Wes said, vendors join this every day. So there's probably a bunch more out there that we're using that we don't have in our system as of yet. But we're always searching and we're always adding to our library. So you can see, I mean, this ranges from, Adobe Creative Cloud, which is software that's used across so many different courses, down to specific courseware like Alex and McGraw-Hill and Pearson, and these products that, have a very specific and intended use. So I think it's definitely great in that way. We've also started to add like library database resources to it. We've brought the Shapiro Library folks on board, and they've started populating this library as well. And so we're really starting to make it pretty robust. You can see we have 83 in all. 74 of them are approved and in use. 2 are pending. And so if you want to just click into the pending tab, you can see these are products that we're considering using. We're investigating them right now. There's only 2 on there, but I wanted to make sure I had something to show you. There's probably a lot more that we're investigating, but and then you can see there's a couple that we've used in the past and we've actually stopped using, and so they're now on the denied list, which are these 2. Unfortunate. And you can see their grades are pretty well reflective of why we no longer use them. Sure. I mean, I don't think we're suggesting anything. I think we're just providing the feedback of how we've used it. So this is, right now, the only people who have access to this trial are people from the COSI team, and then, like I said, a couple of library folks as well have joined in. So we just want to make sure that we're providing the information about what we've done with this product. There's some feedback in there about, you know, the usability of it and the applicability of it and things like that for both of these. And so really, you know, I would say that if we were to broaden this to the entire university, that I would just tell people to take it at face value, right? Go in there and read these reviews and read this information about these products and use it to inform your decisions. Yeah, sure.
Talk about Skillsoft.
Sure. So Skillsoft, oh, yep, sorry. I should hand the microphone when people have questions. The question was, these both are listed under our denied tab, and she was asking who makes that decision. So right now, this decision was made by our, like I said, our COSI people who are using this platform. And the library, yeah, actually, this was a dual-owned resource. So Skillsoft was a resource that we actually had in use for a couple years. We had signed a 3-year agreement with them in which we were paying, I think, a little over $100,000 a year to use their database. And we were finding that not only was it difficult to use and navigate and it had a lot of technical issues with it, but we also just weren't getting our return on investment. We weren't using it enough across enough courses or in enough programs to be able to justify the cost, the high cost that we were seeing on it. And actually, would that I had this platform when we were looking at it, because we had to do a lot of that analysis, you know, kind of on our own and external from something like this that would have actually made it a lot easier for us to see all of its sort of pitfalls. And so we did terminate our contract with them. We ended the contract early, and we no longer use the product at COSI.
So what we're talking about here is a really exploratory use of this. If we were to adopt this institutionally or even across the College of Online and Continuing Education, we'd probably have more conversation about that. Maybe we wouldn't put them in deny, but we would say, we're no longer paying the contract because we don't find that it's a feasible product for us. If someone's interested, and to your question, Lisa, they could find out who owns that, who made that decision, and get in touch and say, hey, I want to look at Skillsoft. They're doing some new things. I'm really interested. So I think that's a conversation that we keep having.
Yeah, I was just going to say, one of the things that the platform can do that we haven't really explored yet is we can actually customize what those say. So like reviewed and denied is pretty like authoritative. So like you could change the status of that to be like, we don't support this, as opposed to like denied.
Yeah, because what I'm kind of wondering, if you open this up to the rest of the university and we have certain tools that are used differently by certain departments.
Yeah,
So one
absolutely.
department may be, you know, this isn't useful for us at all. But you'll have another department that finds it very useful. So who, you know, that return on investment may not be worth it to COSI,
Right.
but it's worth it to a different UC. Exactly.
Yep, exactly. And that's, you know, certainly where we would want to continue to have these conversations and customizations of this platform as we open it up to more users. That's a great question.
I don't know if this is so much a question, but more of a comment. I could see this being really helpful with IT to see,
Yes.
you know, which ones has IT said we can support this or we're okay with their security measures,
Yep.
that kind of thing, and maybe that would be
Yes.
helpful.
Yes, absolutely. And there's, I was going to get into it a little later, but you can see down on the procurement side as well, you can get into all of the different contracting that we've done with these, as well as those measures themselves. which is involved in all of our contracts when we sign up with a vendor to make sure that they're all in line with those types of things. But we don't have anything in there right now because we haven't done that yet. So, so if we want to go back to the products piece, I want to kind of show you a little bit more in depth what we've been able to do with some of the products that we have in our library currently. So a good example is Cengage. So if you scroll down or search, look at you using the search tools. You can see Cengage is in our courses. It's approved for use. So if you click onto courses, you can see that we have the course list populated here with a few of the courses in which Cengage is used. There's more as well, but you can easily add courses to this lineup to be able to show. And then really in the features tab is where you start to get into the quick framework. So the quick framework for this product has already been filled out. And you can see it gives scores across all of these different categories. This is our scores on this product. So our learning resources team at COSI went in and completed the quick framework for the Cengage product. And you can see there's really high scored areas and then some areas where it doesn't score as well. And then if you click across, there's actually 3 different categories. So in procurement, probably one of its weaker categories. And then in the delivery space, I think it's a little more evened out. And you can see here, this is where you start to see a double line. So the double line, like Wes indicated, actually means that the vendor has gone in and completed some of this as well. And so another great point, and I loved your question about who is in this platform and like for vendors and how they get into it. From the beginning, we've actually been encouraged to reach out to our vendors on our own and tell them to go here and sign up and input all of their information. So some of them have done it. Most of them haven't yet. But if you want to click back into the library, and I can show you Alex, which is one of the other products that we have in use. And they did complete, if you go back to all products, they actually did complete the quick framework. And so you can start to see the comparison between the two. Because I reached out to them and I told them, go in and do your quick framework. And they did. So we can start to see the comparison. And on most things, you'll see we actually scored pretty similarly. So the outer circle is SNHU, and the inner circle is Alex's scores. So you can see from my perspective, their customization and configuration capabilities are actually much higher than they scored themselves. But from my perspective, the depth of interaction is actually much lower than they scored themselves. So it all really depends on how I think you are interpreting the questions in quick as well. So if you want to click into a product, actually, Tracy, that hasn't completed this yet, I can start to show you what some of those questions look like. I think maybe McGraw-Hill. Sorry. Trying really hard not to cough. Oh no. There we are. So I don't think I've done the feature analysis on this one yet. So this is what it looks like before you've done any kind of quick analysis. And so from the administrative perspective, it prompts you to complete this. And you can see there's a lot of questions on here. They're very in-depth as well. And I feel like they're pretty open to interpretation and open to different sort of viewpoints of whether or not we've hit these different markers. And so, it's all sort of about how you're using the product. You can see so if you scroll down a little more, I want to just talk about the difference between those two. So you can see that some of these are grayed out and they have check marks on them. That means that McGraw-Hill has actually gone in and done their quick framework. We haven't done ours yet. So those empty boxes are where we would fill in whether or not they hit this particular attribute or not. And so, it's definitely something to think about and but also take with a grain of salt, right? Because we don't necessarily need every product to do every single one of these things. And so that's where it really takes a keen eye and a really investigative mind to go in and sort of see, hey, you know, I want to use this product for this, this, and this. It didn't score well in this, but I don't plan on using it for that. So kind of looking at it from that perspective, I think that's what's really great about this platform is it shows you all of those differences, and it's able to show you that level of detail to make sure you're getting what you need. So, yeah. So there's also, I mean, there's a ton of information you can fill out here. In addition to the courses, you can input pricing information if you click on the little gear symbol next to McGraw-Hill. The little gear, yeah. You can, you know, update their profile, so to speak, right? So talking about whether or not they're FERPA compliant, how many students are using this, and then the cost information as well. So are we paying for it on an institutional basis? Are we paying for it on a per student basis? Contract expiration dates, a lot of really good background information on each product. And like I said, we're working to go through our entire product library and really get it up to date and complete so that we can start running impact analysis on them. Sure. Like the quick framework of one that we're currently using, or? Yep. Yep, so the question was if we could go back into one of the products to see how we're using it versus maybe other people in SNHU are using it or other people in the community are using it. So the first thing I want to do to answer that question is to go to our community tab and just kind of show you that the people who we have tied to this account right now, those 41 people there, if you click into 41, you can see obviously it's not a huge list of people, right? These are COSI specific people, and so they've filled out the way we're using it at COSI. But if you scroll all the way down, you can see that there's actually a couple of people who created their own accounts and have requested to tie themselves to SNHU. So they either teach here or they work here or they're somehow affiliated with SNHU, and they could potentially be going in and reviewing these products. We don't have a ton of feedback from SNHU community members on these products because I don't think that people really know about this yet. But as we started to go in, you could see in the product library, if you went back in, you'd be able to see that feedback tab. Yeah, if you go to Alex, I think there should be some feedback in there. Or maybe Cengage is probably better. You keep going down, or just search it, yeah. I think Skip filled out some feedback on it. Mm-hmm. That, I don't know. Wes, did you hear the question was for the users in our community, is there a way to tag them with where they work and what their responsibilities are so we could have some more context around who that person is? Okay.
Anworth. So we can tag users with different, and as far as different groups go. So like you saw the learning resources group, that was just something we created and sort of attached people to. So there's these different groups that you can organize. Nobody fills it out, you know, unfortunately. Specialty is, you know, platform is generally set up to be able to enter information We also have a mechanism in the platform to actually verify that a person is what we refer to as just an educator, right? So in our terminology, you are all educators, obviously. The guy at Skillsoft is not, right? So the way the platform is set up, anybody can sign up, right? Like I said earlier, the Skillsoft dude could sign up, he could come in, he could give Skillsoft 37 A pluses and his competitor 37 Fs, and that's fine. But that information is not going to go anywhere until we actually verify that he is an educator, which we wouldn't, right? So
your company now has a process to vet the Skillsoft guy.
yeah,
And he couldn't tie himself to SNHU without us moving that.
right.
So I want to jump back because I know you had a question about getting some feedback or getting some sort of different information about how we're using it. So whenever you're clicking on a product, you can see the product profile for either Southern New Hampshire University or the Learn community as a whole. So you can see, because we don't have that many members, our Southern New Hampshire University profile is pretty mundane. We don't have a lot of grades. If we had a lot more people using it, you'd probably see a lot of different information across all of these different categories, and you'd be able to click into these and get a little bit more information on all of them. But you can see, if you go to the Learn community piece, you'd be able to see a much more robust profile with a lot more information and grades associated with it. You can see here, I mean, there's a ton more data for all of these different types of questions, and you're able to see a good smattering. So I would say, because we're fairly new users of this product, you're probably going to get a better sense of a product by going to the Learn community profile as opposed to the SNHU profile, until we start to build up more users and more data inputs and things like that. So. Yeah.
So you said that access to the learning community is free, correct? But to get Southern New Hampshire on here the way we have it, and getting more users access to specifically SNHU products, is that costing us money? And do we pay by, is it a full subscription? We pay by license, user?
Yep, by license. Right now we're under a trial. Yep, so if we were to expand at the end of the trial and expand it to the university as a whole, that would allow for us to have all those university people. I think Wes can probably tell you more about the pricing specifics or the administrative specifics.
Yeah, the way it typically works is like, since we're technically on a pilot, like there is like a user limit, which is kind of how we limited the pilot. But generally speaking, how the subscription works is like, if SNHU decides like we're gonna go all in, like there's no limit on the number of Southern New Hampshire University folks who could be on this.
No, it's fine. This is good. Yay, questions.
How many admins are allowed access?
It's probably another Wes question. As many, yeah. It's up to us, yeah. I mean, I think it's, that's another definite conversation we need to have, right? Because admins, like you can see, I mean, there's a lot of information and sort of, quote unquote power that you have within this system, right? To provide these evaluations and provide these descriptions and course lists and things like that. So I think we would really need to start to partner with all of the different pieces of the university who are stakeholders in EdTech, and make sure that we have the right admin list. I mean, right now, obviously, it's us as the Learning Resources Department for COSI, because we're the most involved and entrenched in this world of vendors. But I know there's folks on campus who work for those types of things. I know that, CFA has its pieces, and so we definitely, ITS obviously works with a lot of different software, so I think it would definitely be a conversation of getting everybody together and deciding on the right admins.
And just like theoretically speaking, not that this is where y'all are going to go, but ultimately the platform is set up to be hierarchical, right? So like there could be an umbrella Southern New Hampshire University, you know, account in here, but ultimately if it made sense, like you could segment, you could do sort of like sub-organizations based on different departments or different, you know, you have the online versus the, what'd you call it, UC, did I get that right?
UC, yeah.
There you go.
Nailed it.
And, you know, so you could kind of like, you know, if you thought like, well, I wish I was an admin over here, but not like the whole thing, like theoretically we could like
Yeah.
segment all that out.
And like faculty versus admins and things like that. That was our kind of thought when we were first doing it is, you know, we'd love to eventually open this up to the faculty, obviously, who use these products, right? Because what better way to get a ton of feedback than sending it out to, you know, thousands of adjuncts. But we definitely want to make sure that there's a way that we can sort of differentiate their feedback from our feedback and all of that because, you know.
Can you talk a little bit about the company, how long you've been in business, how many employees, how many clients, revenue? You're clearly a cloud provider, where you're hosted, et cetera.
I guess I should get on the camera. Yeah. So we launched the platform, the first version of the platform in October of 2014. So we're still a fairly young company as far as companies go. We're based in Raleigh, North Carolina. We have about 15 people on the team now. A mix of you know, technologists, academics, researchers, data folks, you know, what have you. And ultimately, you know, we started with the idea that there just wasn't enough good data on education technology for folks like yourselves to leverage when trying to make these decisions. And so was there a way we could pull all that together into a platform to help folks figure out all of this EdTech stuff? We actually started with the feedback part. Like that was our initial idea, was what if we could harness like teacher and faculty feedback on all of these tools to give folks information. But as we started developing the platform, it became clear that there was a heck of a lot more to it than just that. So it morphed into this, you know, more of this sort of management system. It is cloud-based. It's on AWS. I am not a technical person, but if you need more information on that stuff, I know who to ask.
How about revenue, number of clients, who your target client is, cash flow positive?
We are venture-backed. So we closed a Series A at the start of the year, so should be around for a while. We work with, so we started, you know, full transparency, we started in the K-12 space. Like our initial hypothesis was that this information was badly needed in K-12. And then it turns out that, you know, as we started talking to folks, that there were similar issues in higher ed. They're not the same, they're similar. And so we started working in the higher education space not too recently. So our higher ed customer portfolio is a handful. We work with ASU, Ball State, you guys, a couple others. But we work with a couple hundred different school districts, K-12 school districts across the country.
Yes. I know we skipped over your question.
2 more questions and then Lisa, I'm done, I swear. So how long is your pilot right now? And if everything works out well, what is the timeline or your roadmap?
So our pilot goes through the end of this fiscal year. So we're actually rounding the bend on the end of the pilot. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, but obviously we had a little setback when we decided that we were going to switch LMSs in 4 months. So we didn't get to do quite as much with Learn as we would have liked to have done over the fall. But you know, we've still managed to do a lot. You know, I'm really happy about the way we've built up our product library. We learn more and more about it every day, and we've just recently started like telling everybody else about it. So this is one of the first sort of experiences that we've had, really opening this up to the rest of this new community at large, and starting to show you guys, hey, you know, this is something that we're using, this is something we're looking at. We find a lot of value in it. We think there's a lot more we could do with it. You know, there's definitely a ton of potential here, especially, I mean, we haven't even started looking at impact analyses and things like that with the products that we have in our library as a whole. And, you know, I think I love, I love to hear Wes talk about, you know, oh, we saw that there was a need. And I was like, I am such a proponent of Learn. Like, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh my God, somebody like took my whole job and put it in a website. This is so great. Because really that's what it is, right? Like, our whole job in the Learning Resources Department is to search and vet technology, categorize and catalog all of that technology, monitor it over the course of its life, figure out what courses it's used in, and then figure out the impact of it and recommend more based on that. And literally that's exactly what this does. So I love Learn. Wes knows we've had many webinars where I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. But yeah, it's definitely, you know, I think there's a lot of really good uses for it. As far as our roadmap, I don't know, do you want to speak to that?
I mean, I think you did. We're interested. We're going to keep looking at ways to budget and continue it. Ultimately, we'd like to open it up and not be just a pilot limited to 41 users. We're already at that limit with 3 guest licenses. So anyone here or anyone in your departments who wants to look around, please get in touch with us. I think you're going to send this out, sandboxes with our names. Send us an email and we'll get you involved so that you can look around. And let's keep talking.
Awesome. One more question.
Yeah.
I promise I'm done.
Okay.
I think, Wes, you said on the community, at least, students are allowed to leave feedback as well, correct?
No, we don't.
Students are not allowed to, okay. Do you think that this may be a good opportunity to allow students to provide some feedback on the tools that we are having them use?
I mean, I think it's great. You know, I know obviously Learn right now is limited to educators, you know, specifically. I think faculty are probably a really good conduit to be able to grab their student feedback and start to put it into here. You know, I think that would be really interesting for you guys eventually. There you go. There's an idea for you.
It's actually something that we've talked about, and it's in our product vision to do that. I think the issue for us on that front isn't higher ed. It's that genesis in K-12 and like actually engaging like students on that level like opens up a whole thing that we just have to be thoughtful about it. But it's definitely something that we've heard would be valuable for folks in both K-12 and higher ed, and that we're actively discussing, but at this point we haven't done it yet.
I think it is. I mean, it's a really good idea, right? Because, I mean, obviously we have mechanisms for collecting feedback from students, you know, their end of year surveys and all of these other different pieces. And so we're already getting a lot of feedback from students on the products that they're using. And they're not shy about sharing whether or not they like something. So, you know, I think it would definitely be really interesting to see the differences between the two. Like, I would love to see donuts about like, hey, this is what we think, and then the students are like, nope, just kidding, we hate it. So that would be really cool, I think. But yeah, so future times. So any other, yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. As far as products that might not be considered like necessarily EdTech, like maybe Adobe falls into that category, but how much do you foresee that you're going to allow other technologies to be part of this platform that might not be considered for education, but educators could use?
We're totally open to it. So when we first built the platform, the product library was it was about 1,000 products, and we thought that was a lot. But as we started working with organizations, and they would essentially tell us like, hey, we need you to put like these in there because we use these also. And the product library now is an interesting mix of things that you would put in the education technology category and maybe some that you wouldn't, but that are used in an education setting in one way or another.
I've been like shocked by some, not shocked, but like I'll look for some of the stuff that we use because we use all kinds of different stuff that we do, like work, whatever, and I'll look for it in here and it's in here. So I mean, I think it's, and the good thing about it too is that we encourage vendors to go and do it and sign up and become part of the library. So it's really on us to say, hey, we're using this product and this is what we use, how to catalog all of that, go join the community.
And,
It's good for them too, right? It exposes them to more people and all of that. So
and we'll add whatever you guys request us to add, basically, regardless of the vendor's participation. So, and I'll give you an example that just always has amused me ever since we put it in, is one of the school districts we work for asked us to add like a piece of software that manages wrestling meets. Yeah, who knew? So anyway, like, whatever y'all want.
yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, I think we're at time anyway, so thank you. If you have more questions or need anything else, email us. In the Learning Resources Department, we're happy to answer as much as we possibly can or send them to Wes to answer. So thank you guys.